Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. If you've never attended one of these events before, hello. I am Kendall Fisher, and I am the Senior Media Production Manager and resident on-air host here at NetSuite. Today, we are concluding our Women's History Month celebrations by bringing you an exclusive interview with a woman making history right now, founder of Caulipower, Gail Becker. Now, Caulipower is the company behind the Vegelution, providing countless options of delicious frozen meals that are better for you and still ready in minutes. Some of these include cauliflower pizza, chicken tenders, pasta, and so much more. Gail will join us to discuss her inspiring journey with the business, how she went about funding it, why a culture of innovation is core to its success, her hiring process, and of course, the lessons she's learned along the way, with advice for all of us in our individual journeys too. Now, before I bring Gail on, a quick reminder for all of you, please use the comments to ask any questions you have for Gail throughout our conversation. And at the end of today's event, we will actually do a live Q&A with Gail with your questions. So use the comments to ask those, and then tell us where you're tuning in from. Give us a shout out in the comments, and I will do my very best to shout out to as many of you right back. And with that, I think it's time. Please join me in welcoming Caulipower founder, Gail Becker. Hi, Gail. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks so much for having me. How great.
This is awesome. I know we were chatting a bit before we hit go live, and we're both in the LA area, so we could have done this in person.
We could have done it in person. Next time.
Eventually we'll get there, but I love a fellow SoCal resident, and I'm so excited that I get to be interviewing you right now.
Thank you. I'm excited too.
Yes. You probably just heard it in the intro, but as we close out Women's History Month, like I said, we're highlighting you, Gail, as a woman making history right now. And to do so, we need to know about your history. So first, take us back. I have a fun question to kick us off here.
Okay.
What did Gail Becker want to be when she grew up? What were your career goals, and who did you look up to in similar roles?
When I was growing up, I very much wanted to be a journalist. And I actually got to do that for a while. So, you know, I did try that out, and it was wonderful while it lasted. And I guess, you know, one of the people I looked up to at the time was Barbara Walters, who was the first female anchor on the evening news. And I remember once she was speaking somewhere locally, and I drove 2 hours to hear her speak. And she said something at the time that I remember at the time it made me so angry. And now I understand how right she was. And she said, you know, as a woman, it's really hard to do everything perfect, to have the perfect family, the perfect job, the perfect career, and, you know, the perfect, you know, time for you. And she said, and certainly you can't do it all at the same time. And I remember, I was very young at the time. I remember thinking, well, I can have all at the same time. Well, guess what? I was wrong and she was right. So it took me a few years to realize that, but yeah.
You are talking to somebody who needed to hear that right now, because that is something I'm trying to figure out. It doesn't all have to be perfect, Kendall. Just, you know,
and it doesn't all have to be at the same time either.
Yeah. I love that. Well, thank you. So you kind of hit on this a little bit, but tell us what actually panned out in reality about your career path really leading up to Caulipower. You mentioned you did do journalism for a little while.
Yeah, you know, it's interesting. You know, a lot of people describe career paths as a ladder. For me, it's been more of a jungle gym. So it's, you know, I started out as a journalist. Then I worked in government for a while in Washington. I worked in Hollywood for a while. That was interesting. And then I worked in corporate America. I worked for a very large public relations and marketing firm, and sort of worked my way up to the top of that ladder and said, you know what, I don't really like the view. And that's where when I decided to make the leap.
Yeah. So that's so you're working in corporate PR.
Yeah.
How does Caulipower come about? Like, what sparked the idea for this company, for the Vegelution, which I'm going to keep saying because it's just so fun to say.
Oh, thank you. I love it. I would say it was really three things that came together at the same time. It was this interesting convergence in my life. One was the passing of my father. So I'm a first generation American. Both my parents were Holocaust survivors. And, he came here with nothing, less than nothing, and he built a small business. And when he passed, something inside me really changed. And I knew I wanted to do something more meaningful, but I didn't really know what it was. I was also really disenchanted with corporate life. I sort of, looked around the room and thought, I really need something more. But again, I didn't really know what that was. And then finally, I'm the mom of 2 boys with celiac disease, and they were diagnosed at such a young age that there was no gluten-free food in the store. So one night, so it gave me a really good perch from which to watch the gluten-free industry evolve. Yeah. And I saw there was a lot of junk in the food. And, so one night I made cauliflower crust pizza, 569,000 recipes on the internet. I picked one. It was okay. But it took me 90 minutes to make a pizza. Whoa. And I thought, wait a minute, who's got 90 minutes to make a pizza crust after a full day of work? So it was really that disenchantment with corporate life, the passing of my father, and the realization I can't be the only one who thinks this is crazy. Yeah. And that was the impetus.
Well, and why do you think other companies hadn't done this prior to you? Like hadn't, kind of dove into this arena? Or if they did, what were they getting wrong?
You know what, Kendall? It's such a good question. And it's one that I ask myself all the time. Because if you think about it, if you think about big food, right? There's hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars being spent each year on R&D.
Yeah.
Well, what are they R&Ding? Because, this was an idea hiding in plain sight. And I think what it really exemplified is how desperate consumers were to find something better and something easier, that they were willing to make it, that they were willing to spend 90 minutes just to get it. So obviously all I did, quite frankly, was listen. The demand was out there. I just listened to it. And I don't know why the big companies did not, but I'm glad they didn't.
Yeah, because here you are. Here I am. And we chatted about this beforehand, but I am a Caulipower consumer. I do, I would say at least 2 to 3 times a month, my boyfriend and I make cauliflower pizzas. We've tried out all different recipes. We've done pesto. We've done, tomato sauce. We've done like any of the butternut squash kind of like pasta sauces we've done on top. So we've done everything, and it is. I love it. So it's so much fun. And you're right. Like this is something that was important to me because I like to try to eat healthy and not just save my my treats for the weekend. Caulipower allowed me to be like, oh, I can eat pizza on a Wednesday night and still not
feel like crap after.
Yeah, exactly. So, Gail, it's one thing to have this really brilliant idea, right? That you clearly had, but it's another to A, believe in your idea, and B, get it off the ground. So starting with A, how did you know this idea could actually become a full-fledged business? What gave you that confidence?
Okay. Short answer is I didn't. And I think it's one of the, obviously we're talking about women in particular this month. Well, I think women, specifically, we sort of, or maybe all people leaving corporate America, you're waiting to hear this sign. Like when are the angels going to sing so that I know it's the right time to do this? And what I realized is it's kind of like having kids, right? If you wait for the right time, it's never going to happen. So you might as well do it. And that was sort of the tack that I took is what I did know is there would never be a better time.
Yeah.
I didn't know that was the right time, but I knew there would never be a better time. And what was I waiting for, right? I am a bit of an older entrepreneur, which I think has advantages and disadvantages. But so that was my moment. And it was almost like like a calling. I knew it was something that I had to do. And, somebody sent me, when I announced that I was leaving, someone said to me, well, it's better to say oops than what if.
Love that.
And I've kind of lived my life by that. Yeah. It is better to try and fail than to never, give yourself that gift of trying. Yeah. And and even if you do fail, it really is seen as a badge of honor these days. So truly.
Yeah. Wow, there's so much good advice in there. Like, don't wait for, the sign might never come. So don't do that, right?
Yeah,
and again, I love, it's better to say oops than what if. Really great takeaways there. Kind of like a second part to my first question. What characteristics do you think made you cut out for entrepreneurialism?
Such a good question. Well, one, I'm the daughter of an entrepreneur, and I think it gave me, I remember so he owned a small store in San Francisco, and I used to ring the cash register starting at 5 years old. And I would literally sit on a box and ring the cash register. And, wow, what a wonderful view to what it meant to have your own business. And it was, a big part of me leaving and doing this was that I wanted to honor that. I wanted to honor my father in that way. So I think that was definitely it. I think another thing, though, and I think this is a one trap that a lot of entrepreneurs fall into, is that you feel like because it's your idea and your business, you have to know everything. And guess what? You don't.
Yeah.
You can hire people. You can surround yourself with people who are experts in those things. And it's okay to admit when you don't know something. In fact, it's probably the best thing that you can do. And so for me, I wasn't afraid to admit. I knew what I knew, but I also knew what I didn't know. And I wasn't afraid to admit what I didn't know. And I've been like a sponge ever since.
Wow, that's great. And I love that, because that's transparent and authentic. And that's what I think everybody is looking for in a leader, for sure.
I think so too. And I think it's one of the problems.
Oh, there we go.
I think it's one of the problems that, that we've created in this founder entrepreneur culture, is that, we have to know all the answers. And I think learning some of the answers along the way can be painful, but can also be half the fun.
Absolutely. So going back to part B of my question here, what steps did you take to turn your idea then into a reality, especially with no prior food experience?
Right. My only experience with food was that I bought it, cooked it, and ate it. So I think what look, and I think this is certainly have to do with being comfortable in what I didn't know. So I hired consultants, and I begged, borrowed, and stole advice and counsel into how to get started. And the biggest thing was I hired someone to help me find someone to make the pizza, because I didn't know the first thing about making a pizza. And and that was a wonderful learning experience, and I've been like a sponge ever since. I think, though, the crux of what you're asking is really interesting, though, because there are lots of good ideas out there. Yeah. Everybody has a good idea. I bet everybody who's joining us today has a good idea. The difference is execution. Good ideas are a dime a dozen. It's those who execute upon it that makes the difference.
Wow, that's great. That's really, really great. Speaking of, by the way, we have a ton of people that are commenting and very excited. So I want to get to them. Speaking of all the people on here that probably have wonderful ideas, so I'm going to go quickly through this. Kimberly is tuning in from Boston. Neil says, Gail, you are a force of nature. Congratulations. From Dana, we have a hello from North Vancouver, Canada. From Yosh, hello from Minneapolis. Aaron, love that. Career paths don't always have to be a straight ladder. They can be a jungle gym. They love that. Right. We have a hello from India. More about cauliflower pizza and pesto lovers. from Sam in Vancouver, Canada. I love cauliflower crust pizza. Also, anything deep fried cauliflower. I'm not even a vegan. Me either, but
most people are not. People eat flexitarian today.
Yes, absolutely. Okay, so getting back into this, you talked about kind of how you got it off the ground. One of the first things you did was find a food manufacturer to help you. I know you could probably, talk about so many obstacles you ran into and lessons learned all day long, but if you could boil it down to your biggest lesson learned in getting the business off the ground, what would it be?
I think that when you sit down and you decide to start a business, I think you have to have a really honest conversation with yourself, and it goes something like this. What rules are you going to follow? Right? Maybe you're joining an industry like I did that I knew nothing about. There's a lot of conventional wisdom, a lot of good advice and good structure to follow. But also, what rules are you going to break?
Yeah.
What's going to make you the disruptor? How is your business? How is your idea? How is your execution going to be different than everything else out there? Are you going to be better? Are you going to be cheaper? Are you going to be more luxurious? What is it about what you're doing that is different? And you got to know, you got to really early on, you got to say, these are the rules I'm going to follow, and these are the rules I'm going to break. And, I'll give you an example. For us, very early on, I made the decision, I don't want to make our box look like everyone else's box. Right? I stood there in the frozen pizza aisle, and I saw a sea of black and red. And I thought, well, what am I going to do to stand out of those cloudy doors? I know, I'm going to put a big fat meme on the front of our box. And that's what I did. And, people thought I was crazy, but it ended up being a pretty good thing to do. And so I think having that, really making a list of rules you're going to follow and rules you're going to break. That's probably one piece of advice.
I love that. That's great. Yeah, and your box certainly does stand out from the green or from the reds and the blacks that are in that aisle. So you definitely did it. Okay, so you kind of have this. You have this idea. You have your manufacturer. You're ready to get the world into the hands of people. What was your initial go-to-market strategy and why?
Wow. I did make a decision very early on that, look, I had a pretty good job in corporate America with a lot of perks, and I used to make money and all of these things. And I left because my mission, my personal objective was I wanted to make better for you food more accessible to all. Yeah. So I made a decision pretty early on that I wanted to have wide and vast distribution. And that really did two things. One, it made it more accessible to all, but it had the strategic advantage of really leveraging that first to market advantage, right? Because when you're first to market, you got to move quickly because the followers, they come and they come hard. Yeah. So, so that's what I did. And it started with just 30 stores, 30 Whole Food stores in Southern California. And if there's anyone out there who wants to start a food business, Whole Foods does have this program where you can pitch your item to your local region of Whole Foods. So I'm in Southern California, so I literally dropped off a styrofoam container of 4 of the most expensive pizzas ever made, and I dropped them off at the receptionist. I couldn't even get a meeting, like I was like I was dropping off my kid at daycare. And then a week later, I got an email that said, wow, we really like them. We want to bring them into 30 stores.
Wow. That is actually something that we have heard about Whole Foods a lot. One of our other customers, Hint Water, Kara Golden, did something very similar and started a Whole Foods up north in the Bay Area. So that is really interesting. And I want to dive into that a bit more. Tell us about kind of like, so when you drop off this kind of styrofoam package of your most expensive pizzas in the world, of your pizzas, of your babies.
Yes.
So they give you this call, like, how do you go back and forth? Like what went into that deal and what did you learn?
Well, it wasn't a call. It was actually an email. And I say that because I remember it's like one of those life-changing moments that you know exactly where you were. I was in a Starbucks in Washington, D.C., and I get the email and I screamed in the middle of the Starbucks and the whole place turns around. And I really, there was something inside me that wanted to say lattes for everybody, but I didn't. But, I definitely wanted to. And that was, you know, and from that moment, it was sheer joy and sheer panic all rolled into one, because I thought, what did I just do? What did I just get myself into? And that's when, you know, I really learned and fast, you know, how to deliver on the promise that you make. And I think, you know, that's another good lesson for people wanting to start their own business or who are joining a fast-paced business. It's important, you know, to know when you should say yes and when you should say no. It's really the core instinct for any entrepreneur. Say yes. Saying no is like so antithetical to who we are, but saying yes can get you into trouble, because getting the business, that's a fairly, it's not easy, but it's fairly easy. Getting the product there, that's a mountain. That's a mountain. And if you make that promise, you better deliver.
Wow, that's great. And again, that's a lesson that we've heard actually a couple times, and it's so true. Did you ever have to say no?
I did say no. I said no. Costco wanted to bring on Art Crust very early on, and I had to say no because I just knew that I wouldn't be able to keep up with the volume. You know, we were much smaller then, and I had to say no, and it was really, really hard. But in looking back, and you know, another competitor went in there ultimately.
Oh, wow.
So it was a really hard decision, but you know what? I maintain it was really the right one.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you know, kind of speaking of your growth after Whole Foods, how did that kind of create a solid foundation for getting in the doors at other retailers? And where did you grow from there? Obviously, you know, you had this Costco opportunity, but what other retailers did you end up eventually partnering with and feeling good about partnering with?
Yeah, so we started in 30 Whole Food stores. Today we're in about 30,000 stores, which is a big, right. I started, my hair was straight, I like to say. So we've grown pretty fast. We, you know, our growth was took a different path. So we were in those 30 stores in February of 2017. By October of that year, we were in 900 Walmart stores.
Wow.
That's pretty untraditional. But again, it really delivered on my mission to make better food more accessible to all. So I wasn't going to say no.
Right.
And those are the kinds of decisions that you need to make throughout your journey. So that was so it was a bit of an kind of like the jungle gym analogy I used before. Our distribution was a bit of a jungle gym. We went to small regional chains, and we went to Walmart, and then we went to Kroger and Target, and it really snowballed. But the one message that I will say, I think one of the reasons it did, look, when you walk through the grocery store today, you see a lot of big brands. You know, what an idiot. I mean, I entered one of the most competitive categories that there is, you know, with the most limited space. But there's a lot of people who cheer on the Davids out there. And there were a lot of people along the way on this ride that really helped me, guided me, directed me, answered my questions, steered me in the right direction. Sometimes unsolicited, just because they wanted to see David win. And, you know, those are the kinds of things that you never forget.
For sure. Who were those people, if you could say? I mean,
there was a buyer at Walmart who did that, and a buyer at Albertson Safeway who did that, who really just helped guide me. And, you know, look, when you're like, it's hard when you're a young entrepreneur, I meant young in, I don't mean young in age. I meant, although whatever.
Yeah.
But when you're a young entrepreneur, there's a lot of people out there who will take advantage of you or who will try to take advantage of you. I can't say that enough. There are a lot of people who will try to take advantage of you. And sometimes you walk right into it. And there are a couple of people who along the way said, you know what, we're going to step in here and we're going to fight for you, or we're going to help you, or I wouldn't go that direction. I wouldn't go that direction. That doesn't mean I didn't land myself in a lot of swamps. I did. But I also avoided a lot. And that's really due to the kindness of so many in this industry.
Wow. Wow. That's amazing. I love hearing those stories. Thank you for sharing that. Kind of along the same lines, I guess, you took a minority investment from a VC firm in the fall of 2017, about 8 months or so. Like you said, you launched in February of 2017. You took this VC funding in the fall of 2017. And that was the only time that you've actually raised outside money. So I'd love to know more about your thought process there and your decision to really remain the majority stakeholder in the business.
Well, I have taken money since then. So I have taken money since then. And look, and that's what you need to do in order to grow the business. Right. It is that fine line, particularly, and a lot of it depends on what the business is. Like frozen food is just about the most expensive thing you can make, from a capital expenditure perspective. So like, it's just a cash machine. So I self-funded it for as long as I could. I sold everything I had. I maxed out my credit card, same thing. I used my savings. So that allowed me to do a lot, stay afloat until I took my first investment. But, the business got big. And when a business gets big, it needs a lot of gas, and you have to fuel it. So it is that constant battle about how much you raise, who you raise it from, when do you raise it, under what terms. I mean, there's a lot of consideration that goes into that. And there's really not one path.
Absolutely. While women raised more venture capital dollars in 2021 and have executed more exits at greater values than at any point in the last decade, it actually still pales in comparison to companies run by men. Based on your own experience, what needs to change or improve to equalize the funding playing field?
Boy, how long do you have? That's a subject all unto itself. It's pretty bleak, I will say. Women receive, I think it's still 2% of VC dollars, which is shocking. What's the most shocking about that is the ROI for women-run businesses and women-founded businesses is actually greater than it is for men. So obviously there's a disconnect, right? I think it's a couple things. I think, so when I looked for money that first time, I must have talked to, I don't know, 35 to 40 different VCs. 35 to 40, right? I can tell you that maybe 2 were women. Wow. So there's not enough women playing that game, first of all. Now, there's lots of people who would say, oh, but they have all these women-centric funds now to help. And they do. And it's great. And I want to see them succeed like nobody else. But the money is not the same. They don't have the same pots of money. Backing. Of course, there are exceptions. I'm speaking only in generalities. And everything comes down to access to money, access to cash, and wealth creation. And until there's more women on my side, until there's more women on the VC side. So part of it, then it's going to be really hard for things to change. Now things are getting better, right? And certainly from a public perception, they are. If you're a public company, you have to have a certain amount of women on the board. There's all these guidelines that you have to do. But there's not a lot of guidelines in the private world.
Yeah.
And so, you know, I think one of the things that women can do is talk to other women and talk to other female founders or entrepreneurs that have taken money from the same people.
Yeah, that's
people really
great.
Need to do their homework.
Yeah, that's great. And I couldn't agree more. Obviously, it has to be on both sides. It has to be. We need more female founders, and we need more female VCs to make sure that, you know, there's representation on both ends. So I appreciate that.
And most importantly, you know, everybody watching and consumers need to do their part too. So if everybody wants to see female, here's a little secret. If everybody wants to see more female-led and founded businesses, there's only one thing to do: support more female-led and founded.
Purchase their products. Yeah, look
exactly.
for them.
Purchase their products. Share them with friends. Follow them on social. Get their newsletter. All kinds of ways. But it makes a difference, because in this industry, I'm not talking about food, I'm talking about finance. In that industry, cash is what talks. Money is what talks. Performance is what talks. Data is what talks. And so that's a great way that people can really make a difference.
Love that. So there's three prongs there: more founders, more consumers buying, you know, female founding products, and we need more female representation on the VC side. I love that, Gail. So now you have grown Caulipower into a major powerhouse. Not only does Caulipower own 50% of the cauliflower pizza crust market, but you added new product lines that bolstered that success. Cauliflower rice, another one of my favorites. Chicken tenders, cauliflower pasta, breakfast scrambles, sweet potato toast, potatoes.
There you go.
How did you go about diversification, and what market research or data really led to these new products? It's not all cauliflower now. Now you have
no. Right. Yeah. No. And we have a whole array of vegetables. Diversifying our vegetables. We're not a company. Let's be clear. We're not a company that makes things out of cauliflower.
Yeah.
We're a company that, you know, creates better for you, delicious food using vegetables.
Right.
And that is who we are. And also, as part of that, we bring your meal hacks to life. So the fact that we're helping, you know, we're a company that's as much about convenience as we are about food. And, you know, spending 90 minutes making a pizza crust, taking, you know, an hour and a half to make chicken tenders healthier, is time that everybody wishes they had and doesn't want to have to spend. And so, you know, that was really the theory behind our chicken tenders, was that I saw that people were doing everything from, you know, coating chicken tenders in cereal to tortilla chips and then air frying them. So we just thought, well, let's make it easier. Let's do it ourselves. And that's been a guiding force. We also like to go after really meaty categories that are quite large, and also really perhaps most importantly, that are ripe for disruption. Ripe for disruption, like pizza was way back when you know, it was a very sleepy category that hadn't been touched in years.
That's great. What product has broken out the best aside from the pizzas? Obviously,
our number 2 product is the chicken tenders.
Makes sense.
And I will say this for anyone out there that just needs a little reminder: if you have a failure or two, I have lots of failures. So we used to have a baking mix that was it was on the shelf for a little while, and then one of the ingredient suppliers said, "Sorry, we can't make that for you anymore." And so I had to make a very tough decision to, you know, remove the product from our line. A couple of months later, I had some lying around the kitchen. I had some raw chicken. I thought, oh, let me coat the chicken in the baking mix and let me see what happens. And then I'm going to air fry it. So I did that. I served it for dinner. Everyone loved it. And, you know, 10 months later, Caulipower introduced the first baked, not fried chicken tenders. And it was coated in cauliflower. And so, you know, even the mistakes are learning experiences.
One door closes, another door open.
Exactly. So nothing, you know, none of the mistakes are even that. They're all learning opportunities. And, you know, that one led to our, you know, second best-selling product.
Right, right. Amazing. Um, I know this is like probably like picking your favorite kid, but do you have a favorite product?
Don't tell my sons. No. I do get asked that a lot. I have to say, I don't, but if there's one product that has a special place in my heart, is probably our veggie pizza. It's our OG. It's one of the ones that we launched with. And, I don't know. I just love it. We eat it once a week. We make a back of the fridge pizza, which basically means take all of my leftovers and dump it on a pizza and serve it for dinner. And all the vegetables that are just kind of questionable, like they maybe
Right.
have one more night left in them, I'm going to chop them up, put them on a pizza, and yeah. And so, but I do love them all.
That's great. Yeah. Well, you just earned the #2 spot on the Fast Company's 2022 Most Innovative Food Companies.
Yeah.
That back of the fridge pizza sounds pretty innovative to me.
Yes, very scientific.
Yeah. How is innovation ingrained in your leadership style and the culture at Caulipower?
It's such a good question. And I think, one of the things that we always talk about as a group is that, look, obviously we're innovative in our food, right? We created a category, and now we've created several categories, and it's such a privilege to be able to do that and to be able to feed people food that they can feel good about. But it isn't, innovation isn't something that we reserve for food.
Right.
Innovation has to exist in the lifeblood of the company. And so, let me give you an example. During COVID, which, boy, was a challenge for food companies, full stop. Caulipower is certainly no exception. It was hard to get. It was nearly impossible to get product from point A to point B. And and the interesting thing about that is that it put everybody in the same boat. The big companies and the small companies and the medium-sized companies, we were all in the same boat because no one had really ever operated through a global pandemic before.
Mm-hmm.
So what could we do as a, small little, malleable, really flexible company? What could we do? So, we charged our supply chain team, now's the time for innovation.
Yeah.
Now is the time where you get to think of wild and crazy ways to get the product on the shelves.
Mm-hmm.
And you know what? It worked, because our supply rate during some of the height of the worst supply rates of the industry that the industry had ever seen, we were delivering at 98%, which is unheard of. And I really, really give full credit to our supply chain team. And hopefully one of the inspirations they took from Caulipower is that, it's okay to take risks. You have to take risks. That's why did you go into business? And so we did, and it ended up working out.
Yeah. What did you guys change? What did your supply chain team do?
Well, they just, I won't bore everyone with the with the inner workings of supply chain, although it's fascinating.
I was going to say, you might have the right audience for that here, but
yeah, exactly. No, true. Well, first of all, one of the things that we were able to do is, because of who we were and the relationships that we built with not just our buyers, but our transportation, our 3PL, we built these, relationships, and like I said before, that people are sometimes rooting for the Davids. They were rooting for us. They wanted to get our product on shelf. Having that kind of relationships where your vendors and suppliers are cheering you on and want to see you succeed, that's extraordinary. But
Absolutely.
That takes a lot of years of building, and is just as important as all of your other key stakeholders.
Yeah, that's great. Really great insight there. Really great advice. So speaking of, we kind of touched on your leadership style and how innovation is baked into everything that you guys do at Caulipower. And speaking of leadership, at one point, Caulipower's CEO, CFO, and COO were all women. Of course, we are celebrating Women's History Month right now. So I do need to ask, why was this such an important pillar of the Caulipower powerhouse, and you specifically as a leader?
To be honest, I felt like if I didn't, who would?
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, it's really that simple.
Absolutely.
And, look, who would have hired me to be the founder of Caulipower? No one. I wouldn't have even hired me. It worked out that way. And so, I took a bet on myself. The universe took a bet on me. And I felt like I owed that to other women as well. So it was important to me, because I knew that if I didn't, we would never break the cycle.
Right. And on the hiring kind of topic, earlier you had said, for entrepreneurs, one of your biggest pieces of advice is you don't need to know everything. You hire people who know how to help you in the areas that you are not as familiar with.
Yeah.
So what is your hiring strategy? How do you go about really creating the right team?
So I would say at Caulipower, we probably are divided into two kinds of people. We have a lot of corporate refugees, people who have come from big food, lots of experience, knows the industry, worked in it for 30 plus years. I mean, you name it.
Yeah.
And that's great. And they keep us on track. Then maybe the other 40% are sort of people like me who made a career change, they wanted to try something that they love. They've always wanted to work in food. They always wanted to work in a startup. They didn't want to work in corporate life anymore, fill in the blank. And they wanted to take a chance and bet on themselves. And in return, we bet on them. Our head of special projects, who really keeps the, glue of Caulipower together, she was a hairdresser. She didn't want to be a hairdresser. This was before the pandemic. She didn't want to be a hairdresser anymore. Very, very smart woman. And she wanted to try something new. And there was something about her in the interview that I saw. I saw that twinkle. I saw that passion. I saw someone who had so much to give, but no one to give it to.
Right.
And nowhere to give it.
Wow.
And so I hired her, and I have to say, one of the best hires I've ever made. So it's kind of a mix, but I think that diversity in every sense of the word, obviously in the sense that we know, but also diversity of thought, diversity of background, diversity of experience, diversity of perspective. It's all important.
Absolutely. I mean, that's how you get the most kind of insight, the most opinions. If you diversify your workforce, again, across all of those things, backgrounds, cultures, race, whatever it may be, you get so many different inputs, which expands your reach, really.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's awesome. We are coming to the end of our discussion here, Gail. I can't believe I could just keep talking to you for hours.
Well, but close. We could meet.
I know, right? And I still want to open it up to the audience for some questions. We do have some questions and some shout outs that have come in our conversation. If you're tuning in right now, keep commenting, keep asking questions. We're going to get to as many of them as we possibly can. I promise. I'm almost done, so I can open the floor to you all. But from your product scale to your culture, your leadership, you've really created the recipe for success with Caulipower. I asked earlier what you thought competitors had gotten wrong in this arena. So of all the things we just discussed, what do you think you're getting right?
I think we have gotten right, and we'll hopefully always continue to get right because we never take it for granted, is our ability to listen to the consumer. She talks to us.
Yeah.
I say she, it's primarily female, but not exclusively, but she talks to us. She lets us know when she's happy. She lets us know when she's unhappy. And we listen.
Yeah.
Boy, do we listen. We listen on social. People call us. They write us letters. They direct message us. They text us.
Mm-hmm.
I am stunned by how vocal our consumers are, because they care. And they should care. They're putting food in their bodies and giving food to their children, and it's a precious time, and they should care, and it's a privilege. And I think we have always listened. The start of the company was based on listening, and it will always be core to who we are.
And I think that that's really interesting, because bringing it back to kind of like the David and Goliath story, if you will, Goliath can't always listen to the consumer. They're not always super focused on that. Right. Whereas a David company
right.
You can receive those letters. You are, I'm not saying all that's, I'm generalizing now, but you are able to get those letters. You, Gail, are able to see the feedback and the responses, and as the founder of this company, really make those moves. And I think that's so important, and such a, it's such a great thing to be able to do, to be able to respond that way, to listen.
I read everyone.
Yeah. Wow.
And that's a huge, every single one.
I mean, that's a huge applause for you. That's amazing. I mean, to be that invested into, not, to be really active, to be an active leader is so impressive on so many levels.
It's kind of a privilege to read. I mean, the fact that someone's taking the time to let you know what they feel, like, it's a privilege.
Yeah, that's great. Okay, so 2 last questions here really quickly. Where is Caulipower headed in the future? Any goals, both internally and externally?
Well, I mean, we're going to continue to grow. We have a lot of innovation coming out this year, which is exciting. And we work on innovation, as far as 2 years ahead. So, one of the reasons why we're able to have so much innovation this year is because during COVID, when a lot of companies put a halt to innovation, we doubled down on it. So that's really, now we're able to reap those rewards. So that's great. Also, to grow as a company, but to grow profitably and sensibly, and to always do all of that while never losing sight of our consumer and what she needs. It's a tough environment to operate in today, really tough. And I don't think I could have picked a worst time to go into the food industry. So, but we're doing it, and to maintain, a really, growing and thriving and profitable business.
Yeah. And finally, to bring things full circle here, talking about women's history, when the history books are written, what do you hope they say about you? What legacy do you hope to leave behind?
Such a good question. I would love to be remembered as someone who tried to make the world a little tiny bit better in some small way by giving people, better food to feed themselves and their families. If I could do that, wow.
Yeah. And you are doing that. Like I said, look, I'm one consumer and I can see
okay.
But look, hey, good. I am a pizza lover. So the fact that I'm able to stick to my kind of healthy routine and make my cauliflower pizza midweek, I mean, hey, you're making my life and my boyfriend's life better. Who
I love that.
Who would eat pizza every day of his life if he could. So
excellent. Who wouldn't?
Exactly, right? And actually, we had a comment come in from Danielle. Danielle said, I absolutely need that banner in my house. Eat more pizza.
I bought it. Here's the thing. I bought it in Bentonville, Arkansas. After I had won a piece of business at Walmart, we got some of our new innovation there. I happened to see it at a store I was walking by. I took it as a sign. I'm a big believer in signs, so I bought it.
Yeah,
and,
love it.
It's good advice.
Yeah, it's great advice. So that came in from Danielle. We have a couple other comments that came in here. We have from Julio, hello, greetings from Guatemala and Central America. Jessica from Boston, Massachusetts, bring on the cauliflower. And then we do have a couple questions that I want to get to before we wrap up here. Again, if you're tuning in, you can ask any more questions. We have a couple more minutes to wrap up here with Gail. From Ryan, what was the biggest thing you learned from saying no? Probably talking about that Costco experience you had. And would you go back and change your mind if you could?
Wouldn't change my mind. I would change my mind on other things, Julio. I mean, lots of other things. Trust me.
Yeah.
Wouldn't change my mind on that. You know what? Like everything in life, having, starting a business, running a business, being part of a business, it's all, at the end of the day, it's all about relationships.
Mm-hmm.
That's all we have is our reputation, really. And so I have worked very hard to protect the relationship of, the reputation of Caulipower and how we do business.
Mm-hmm.
And you never, in this industry, and I'm sure in lots of others as well, you never want to make a promise you can't keep.
Mm. Yeah.
So it's not growth at all costs. That's silly. It's got to be smart growth. It's got to be strategic growth. And it's got to be attainable growth.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So for all of you that are tuning in right now, please write that down, because it's not all smart growth. I love that. That is such a great takeaway. Well, Gail, that is really it for our questions. Wrapping up here, I'm double checking that no others came in. Oh, actually there's one here. Okay. This one here is from Julia. We talked about hiring earlier. How has your hiring strategy changed amid the big swings in labor force changes over the past few years?
Yeah, it's such a good question. I mean, we've become a lot more flexible, like everybody else, right? I mean, we are a Southern California based company. That's where our headquarters are. But but not everyone has worked there. Like our sales team has always been spread across the country and so forth. And, and now since the pandemic, some people moved away. They obviously kept their jobs. Some people moved, some people moved to another state. Some people moved, maybe a couple hours away from the office. So we've been a lot more flexible. And I think what the pandemic has showed all of us is that, mission is not where your desktop is.
Yeah.
Passion is not where your desktop is, right? It's in the soul of the company. It's it's why you're working so hard. We give a percentage of our sales to help build teaching gardens in underserved schools across the country. Wow. So every product that you buy helps build a teaching garden, and we've built quite a few. That's what brings people to work every day.
Yeah.
So whether they're working in their home in Chicago or LA, or we have someone in Nebraska. It doesn't matter. We are all connected to the same mission, and that is very well. And I would think a lot of companies are coming to that same realization.
Oh, absolutely. You got to find people who are connected to what it is that you're doing and passionate about it, right? Because that's what I think we've all, as employees, we've all learned in the last couple of years that. Yeah. Life gets crazy. And if you're not happy and passionate about what you're doing, then that, what you're doing every day, 8 hours a day, then it's not going to work for you. So really,
What a shame to go through the pandemic and not come out different.
Right.
That would be a shame.
Exactly. Wow.
So I think what it did, and hopefully for some of the people who joined us today, it made us all realize the fragility of life.
Mm-hmm.
So what are you waiting for?
Yeah. Wow. Well, I've got the chills. And on that note, Gail, I don't know any other better way to end it than with that. Thank you just so much for all of your story, the amazing insight that you provided us, the advice. And I have one final question for you, Gail. If our audience wants to check out some of the Caulipower products, how can they do that?
Well, there is a better way to end it. There you go, Kendall. So first of all, anyone can find out anything about us at eatcaulipower.com or via our social channels at Caulipower. As just my way to say thank thank you to everyone who joined us today. If you direct message us on any of our social channels at Caulipower and use the word NetSuite, we'll give you a coupon good for a free product, any free product, to talk about something we discussed today or something that's new to our portfolio.
Love it. Yes. And we've tagged Caulipower and all of our descriptions of this event. So you can even just click right there, go ahead, DM them, make sure that you mention NetSuite and check out some of their amazing products. They are so delicious. And Gail, with that, thank you so much for joining us today.
Oh, thank you. It was so much fun. Really nice to meet you.
Really nice. And for everybody that's tuning in, of course, we can't end this without thanking you. If you are not already, make sure you give us a follow or subscribe for more content just like this happening all the time. We'll see you all soon. Bye.